Gapkin expressed doubt in the theory, saying that he was more suspicious why Trump didn't call for backup when, for the Capitol Police, but Rogan doubled down on the idea that uses agents provocateurs is a standard tactic, especially when someone is the enemy of the intelligence agency. With Trump, that's absolutely the case. Trump set himself against the intelligence agencies. Like, the wild thing about all this is the conspiracy is before your very eyes. We have a ton of video evidence of Donald Trump stating the election was stolen, and he was trying to get governors to certify false election results. He was trying to steal an election in America. He was trying to upend the very democratic institution of the United States.
The story from the Daily Beast is a good example. Joe Rogan says it's a fact that January 6th was a false flag.
Well, you have like coded subtitles now, and they're in the same state, like the same font and color as the Rational National. That's weird.
Cites Ray Epps. Now, that's a misleading headline if I've ever seen one, but of course, that's the Daily Beast. If you are someone who only consumes garbage nonsense like the Daily Beast, you might think Joe Rogan's this crazy Alex Jones guy. However, fortunately for Joe Rogan, he's like one of the most famous people on the planet, and many of his fans know who he really is, so these smears, they don't go very far.
I know why Tim doesn't like the Daily Beast, because the Daily Beast is the outfit that reported on his whole cat capture story that I'm surprised he got away with, but the whole like holding a cat hostage in order to negotiate a contract, that wasn't the Daily Beast.
But let me read this for you. They say, wildly popular podcaster Joe Rogan once again pushed the baseless conspiracy theory. I love that.
Yeah, I know, the guy who loves the Daily Mail's #1 source. It's either the Daily Mail or Post Millennial or Andy No. Those are like the three big sources for Tim Pool when he gets his news. Like in that debate with him where he was like, oh, by the way, the majority of my audience is centrist. Yeah, centrist libertarian. And he's like, look at this. You see that? Centrist libertarian. And then I was like, okay, what's your #1 source though? What's the #1 source for you? It's the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail is your #1 cited source. That is a right-leaning. I don't think there's any debate here. That is a right-leaning publication. That is a right-wing slant on all of their reporting.
The January 6th Capitol insurrection was a false flag orchestrated by the federal government, adding that pro-Trump rioter Ray Epps clearly instigated the attack. Now, hold on there a minute. Ray Epps is on camera the night before and the day of telling people to go to the Capitol and go in the building. He's then seen whispering into someone's ear, and he's on the front line as the people breach the Capitol grounds. Curious. They didn't go after him. The feds didn't go after him. He was protected by the media, defended by the media, and even now they're trying to obfuscate what he did. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Wait, are you just promoting the conspiracy theory yourself? Are you like, hey, they're falsely accusing Joe Rogan of like spreading a conspiracy theory? But is it a conspiracy? So you're not here to say that this was false reporting in the sense that they've maliciously maligned the words of Joe Rogan. You're here to be like, well, I think the problem here is calling it a conspiracy theory when it's a conspiracy fact.
Earlier this month, Epps sued Fox News for defaming him, this we know, and in that lawsuit, we're hearing that Epps may actually be facing criminal charges. They go on to mention that Rogan's got a contract with Spotify, blah, blah, blah. Blah. Rogan said the intelligence community had a vested interest in this going sideways, adding that if somebody wanted to disparage a political party or to maybe have some sort of justification for getting some influential person like Trump offline, that would be the way they would do it. And Joe Rogan is completely correct. He was talking to Jim Gaffigan, who did not know anything about this. I got to tell you, when I listen to Joe Rogan talk to Jim Gaffigan, I'm a political guy. Like, I sit here, I read all this news. I am just like shaking, wanting to talk to these guys.
You should get Gaffigan on the show
and be like, ask me any question and I will answer it and I will show you.
If you want an unfiltered beanie-like opinion on everything, come here.
All the sources. I will pull them up one at a time, and you can, by all means, not believe The Guardian or NPR, the New York Times.
Okay, so I don't know if he's going to continue to read it, but I do want to see what was said. Joe Rogan's recent comments showed the staying power and consequences of Fox and Tucker Carlson's lies about Ray Epps. For years, Fox targeted Ray and spread falsehoods about him, and Fox viewers used lies and the basis to harass and threaten Ray. He added, The absurdity of the conspiracy theory does not stand in the way of it being spread and weaponized to harm Ray. If Mr. Rogan is truly interested in focusing on who instigated the attack at the Capitol, he would find more truth in looking at the mirror than he does in focusing on the wedding venue owner from Arizona. Rogan, who signed the $200 million contract, is an agent provocateur. On his past podcast, he said the FBI was, quote, manipulating those people at the Capitol because they had a vested interest in going sideways in order to disparage Trump. The FBI said that Ray Epps has never been an FBI source or an FBI employee, and staffers at the House Select Committee to investigate January 6 attacks say there's no evidence that Epps was involved in planning or engineering the riots. Additionally, while Rogan was pointing out the lack of prosecution for Epps over his role in the Capitol riot as proof he is working for federal law enforcement, Epps revealed in his lawsuit that the Justice Department informed him on May that it will file criminal charges against him for his actions on January 6. Epps, a former member of the right-wing Oath Keepers militia who voted for Trump twice and believed the 2020 election was rigged, has said he was forced to sell his home and move to a remote trailer park due to death threats he received over the conspiracy theory. He also blames Fox News peddling of election lies for Trump's loss for pushing him to go to Washington, D.C. to protest the certification of Joe Biden's electoral victory. Reps for Rogan and Spotify did not respond for requests to comment. And, like, we got conspiracies wrapped within conspiracy theories here. I know it's a lot less sexy to actually recognize the reality of the situation, that there were so many simultaneous things happening, some of which were understood, some of which were downplayed, and some of which were just not taken seriously when it came to, say, the QAnon conspiracy and how that was actually weaponizing a large percentage of Trump supporters to violent action, as that had already been demonstrated by violent actions that have been taken by QAnoners, not just in the United States, but around the world, in places like Germany and Canada, by the way. So there's that aspect. There's the aspect of a whole bunch of different organizations that are obviously aligned with Trump, whether they be the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, the Boogaloo Boys, the Three Percenters, all of these different people who are believing the president of the United States himself, who is telling everyone a lie. He's spreading a conspiracy theory that he lost the election. That's not something that I see a lot of pushback happening from, the Tim Pools or the Joe Rogans being like. I think it's a lot more significant here. The fact that the United States president at the time was denying the democratic election of the people of the United States, claiming the election was a falsehood, claiming that there was a rigged election against him, which was all conspiratorial nonsense. He's a sore loser man baby who couldn't accept the results of losing, especially to someone like Joe Biden, at which point enough people believed him in enough different factions, and they all congregated around a time when Joe, the president himself, Donald Trump was saying, we're going to take our country back, we have to do this. There's more than ample evidence, both him, a whole bunch of people in his inner circle, like Rudy Giuliani, promoting the idea, and also promoting and inciting violence over and over and over again. And then a whole bunch of people who are in, the media class, Alex Jones, for example, propagating all of these lies, propping them up and being like, yeah, the election was stolen. If you have a selection of the American electorate who not only are, ardent Trump supporters, but they are also very, very enthusiastic patriots who think and now believe a lie propagated by the president of the United States himself that the election was stolen, are they going to take it upon themselves in some capacity if they're surrounded by other people of a variety of different backgrounds, some of them QAnoners, some of them Proud Boys, some of them Three Percenters, whatever have you, all of them believing that, the country is being stolen from them. If the election was false, if Joe Biden stole the election, then that is anti-democratic. That is in defiance of the actual institutions of the United States. Ironically, what President Trump was actually doing. But if you believe that, if you're in that headspace, then yeah, the act of actually enacting violence, of storming the Capitol, of trying to commit acts of violence against the very people who are propping up that lie seems a lot more plausible. It's not a shock to me that, once you put all these different elements together, they all congregate in this moment, and this entire mob of people starts to move, then yes, it takes on a life of its own.
Just, you got to have some standard. Do you believe these outlets or not? Do you believe Politico or not? Okay, well, that's what we're basing this off of. But Jim doesn't know anything. Yeah. He doesn't know anything about it. So what did Joe Rogan really say? He said they never went after Ray Epps. He's seen on camera instigating this stuff. Makes you wonder. And now we know what he said was a fact, is that there were guys there who were intelligence assets encouraging people, or I should say some kind of government agent or law enforcement. This is not controversial. This is confirmed. Yeah. They're admitted to doing it, to going, let's go, hey, go, and pushing people towards the Capitol.
Oh, is that admitted, that agents pushed people towards the Capitol? And said,
there's body camera footage of people associated with law enforcement. I'd have to pull this stuff up. I'm going to be very careful here.
Wait, what? Okay, first off, you screamed that you knew all about this, so much so that you wanted Jim to leave Joe Rogan's podcast, come over to the Beanie Dome, and you could explain it to him. If you have any questions at all, I know so much about this. And then all of a sudden it's like, so it may have been that there's involvement at the highest levels of government to instigate a riot at the Capitol in order to benefit the control and overreach of the U.S. government and its administrative faculties. And then you're like, oh, may I see it? No.
I want to make sure we're getting it right.
Yeah.
But they're saying things like go, go, go. When questioned, I think it was the FBI said we cannot answer, were there people involved at all?
Yeah, they pled the fifth basically, and I did see that clip, and Joe Rogan cited Epps, and he cited
like, this is a conspiracy theory. Joe Rogan argues January 6th might have been a false flag to take down Trump. I think they were going to get him in any way they could. I don't know, but I do know that I think that every other person who was involved in January 6th, who was involved in coordinating a break-in into the Capitol and then instigating people, they were all arrested, but this guy wasn't. Not only that, but they were defending him in the New York Times, the Washington Post, all these different things, saying Fox News is unjustly accusing him of instigating this when he clearly instigated it. He did it on camera, argued Rogan. I don't know if he was a Fed. I know a lot of people think that he's a Fed. Epps has filed a defamation lawsuit against Fox News for a series of on-air claims suggesting that he was the smoking gun of the entire Fedsurrection. In his filing, he claimed that he had recently informed that he would face fact criminal charges related to his actions on January 6th. He would be seeking damages from Fox after the harassment and death threats he'd faced, as well as the laundry list of other consequences from the conspiracy theory about him on Jan 6. After the Capitol riot, one protester who angrily confronted the police told authorities that Epps instructed him to, quote, relax, and said the cops are doing their job.
the FBI director pleading the fifth. But yeah, it was like early.
And he didn't even commit fully. Look at this. Well, he refused to commit fully to the Epps story. Rogan explained that using agents provocateurs was a, quote, common tactic used by federal agencies to disrupt peaceful protests. Gapkin expressed doubt in the theory, saying that he was more suspicious why Trump didn't call for backup when, for the Capitol Police, but Rogan doubled down on the idea that uses agents provocateurs is a standard tactic, especially when someone is the enemy of the intelligence agency. With Trump, that's absolutely the case. Trump set himself against the intelligence agencies. Like, the wild thing about all this is the conspiracy is before your very eyes. We have a ton of fucking video evidence of Donald Trump stating the election was stolen. And he was trying to get governors to certify false election results. He was trying to steal an election in America. He was trying to fucking upend the very democratic institution of the United States. You can build from there. How many people believed Donald Trump? How many people took what he said seriously? How many people had programs and shows where they propagated that lie? How many people like Steve Bannon in the War Room, like Charlie Kirk and fucking, the whole America First shit, Nick Fuentes and the Groypers and all the neo-Nazis, all the three percenters, Proud Boys, the fucking Boogaloo Boys, all on Patriot Front, all of these fucking white supremacists and far-right reactionaries jumping on board on this, propagating it, InfoWars and Alex Jones propagating it, getting people more and more angry, more and more riled up, and even the fucking, the Rudy Giuliani saying all this kind of shit that was directly provoking violence and instigating it to the point where, yes, a whole bunch of different factions assembled on that day on January 6th, led again by the very words of the President of the United States. And yes, there's not a direct, okay, so at that moment, one of the members of the Proud Boys took his commands from the high leader, and then he provoked this section to then attack that area. Like, this became a mob of conspiracies. It was a whole bunch of fucking different groups. MAGA supporters, QAnoners, fucking far-right, Christian nationalists, fucking neo-Nazis, you name it, across the board, they all congregated that day, and then all of a sudden, like most mob rules end up, they started demanding fucking for the vice presidents of the United States to be hung. It's all in front of you. I mean, it's not as fun as being like, and that's why I think the secret, instigation from the FBI was ordered to then start the Capitol riots, and he's the reason why the Capitol riots happened, so they could then go after Trump. Like, Trump's on the other end of this screaming, the election was stolen. I won the election. This is a lie. This is like that's all happening in the open. Like, don't forget Antifa was there. True. You can't forget about all the Antifa super soldiers that were behind this entire thing.
There was very early on after Jan 6, there was a New York.
Joe will push back on all that with zero proof. It's insane. And even if there was a false flag, the guy is right. Why didn't they call the National Guard if he was still in charge? It would have made him look strong. Yeah, if the whole thing was a setup, You know, if it was like, oh, whoa, I'm being attacked by the highest levels of government. People seem to forget that, like, the head of the FBI was appointed by Trump by this point as well, right? They forget that too when all of these new investigations are coming forward saying that, hey, by the way, Donald Trump should not have taken all these classified documents, let alone had them in his bathrooms and all over his house, like fucking laid out there for all to see, let alone bring them to fucking dinners at Mar-a-Lago and be like, hey, by the way, I got secret documents, like that kind of shit. Like, now they're saying like, oh, well, I believe this is probably some kind of a deep state operation in order to remove Donald Trump from office. Yes.
Times article, and it was like, federal agent, you know, describes his experience on Jan 6. So it's long been acknowledged that there were federal agents in Jan 6. I think the strongest argument for false flag, though, is the pipe bomb, which apparently they have footage of, like, the guy who put it there, and they apparently know where he lives too. They've like, I forget where I heard this, but they know his address, and yet they have not prosecuted him or, you know, explained whether it was a pipe bomb or not. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like they've investigated what that was.
Well, that's scandalous, because that guy's...
Well, that's scandalous. You know what's scandalous is that there, again, is such an overwhelming amount of video evidence in this case. This is not a thing where it's like, I wonder if there's any true evidence of Donald Trump actually professing that the election was stolen. I wonder if there's any true evidence of him actually pushing that lie. I wonder if there's any true evidence of Donald Trump pushing this lie to such extremes. And then there was a whole bunch of pundits and media personalities who amplified that. And then it got so many people angry enough that they were actually ready to commit violence. Even if I'll grant you on the most like fucking loose end conspiracy here that there was one element to this of one of the people involved had tried to instigate something, that in and of itself is not enough to start a fucking riot of that size. One dude at just the front of the line, one dude going like, come on, comrades, now is the time. Fucking, if that's the case, then Alex Jones did January 6th, single-handedly. You can see the man, he's on footage with a fucking megaphone being, we're coming for you, commies. We're coming for all of you communists who stole the country. We're gonna get you bastards. And then as soon as he got there and he realized shit was popping off, he's like, this is a false flag. This is Antifa. Antifa did this. Everyone, hurry, turn around. Make sure you get a shot of me saying that I'm not a part of this and I take no part in this. Good. Okay, yeah, Antifa. This is all Antifa. Like, even if that was one person, that doesn't take everything else away. The president of the United States was the one pushing this. Donald Trump was the one saying the election was stolen. Like, the conspiracy is before your very eyes, and it's not a conspiracy at all. It's just actually really, really fucking asinine. Of course, like, the brazenness of this man and his entire political career, of course he would come forward and be like, yeah, the election's stolen. Sir, do you understand the implications of you doing this? What you're doing right now is actually going to, again, fly in the face of American democracy. The actual American election results, you are now lying publicly and denying those and saying that the entire thing is a setup, in which case it was a coup. You are falsely accusing Joe Biden and the Democrats of instigating a coup on the American people. What a surprise. A bunch of people hearing that are like, what? I'm going to take my country back. What? Well, then it's time to do action, you know?
Like,
yeah, Thomas Massey has been posting about this, and that is kind of piece of, in my opinion, that's like the most compelling evidence.
Because the bombs that were placed around the Capitol heighten the entire situation to such a level that you might be able to justify bringing in federal troops or detaining people without.
They let this go on for so long. Do you know how long I was watching that entire thing happen live and being like, I am just completely blown away by the fact that there's so little intervention going on here. They are smashing windows. They are calling for the vice president to be hanged. And yet at the same time, what is the response? There's been a couple canisters. Now there are more police arriving on the scene.
Without charge or trial.
Jim Gaffigan makes a good question, though. He's like, why didn't Trump call anybody in? Yeah. Why didn't Trump just say, get law enforcement down there right now? I think it's fair to say that Trump was bumbling quite a bit.
As soon as there's a rational aspect to any of this, you know, well, the logic is sound. I guess my explanation to continue the conspiracy theory going, because again, I'm more concerned about propagating a conspiracy theory than I am about facts, is that he just fucked up. Yeah, he just fucked up, you know. He was too much was happening in the chaos of the moment, and he was like, you know what? Let's just watch this play out. Let's just see what happens here.
I don't think Trump
Yeah, he was like, there, you can see an entire command center where Trump and fucking Donald Trump Jr. are there. Donald Trump Jr. is practically fucking celebrating this like the happiest day ever. Fucking, you know, and just like fucking dancing all over the place.
had any intention on anyone going into the Capitol. I think he genuinely had no idea what was going on. And I don't mean that he
White terrorists have frightened the government ever since the Oklahoma bombing. They always handled them with kid gloves, of course. Like, again, it was said so many times with complete clarity. Imagine what would happen if these people weren't overwhelmingly white, right? Like, what would happen if a overwhelmingly non-white crowd was suddenly congregating, not only in front of the building, Capitol building, but then it started to look like a handful of them may have weapons, or even not like, you know, guns, but they may have like a series of armaments on them, you know, zap straps, stuff like that. And it seems like they're getting very violent. They're getting ready. Oh, it looks like they're smashing glass. They're moving in. A handful of them seem to be asking for the Vice President of the United States to be hanged. Hey, look, they built a noose. Yeah, they built a noose and they're moving slowly in there. And a whole bunch of people with video cameras and cell phones and all that are streaming the whole thing live, so we can actually hear the things that they're saying inside of the building from all of these live streams. Look, like, what do you think would happen?
he didn't know there were people storming the Capitol on one side and going in the other. I'm saying he did.
Yeah, you saw what happened during Black Lives Matter. Absolutely. You saw what happened when people were, you know, taking on Target centers and burning Target buildings. You saw the response that was coming from you know, Donald Trump back then.
Did not comprehend the situation.
Well, have you've read though that apparently after his speech he told Secret Service to drive him to the Capitol, and they said no, we're taking you.
Pretty sure that was a fake story.
Oh, was that a fake story?
Because they claimed that Trump like attacked the driver.
Well, yeah, it was exaggerated that he attacked the driver, but what I gathered from that was like, if Trump did actually want to go to the Capitol and talk to these guys, could have been a totally different outcome. If Trump was there and he was like, "Hey guys, we want to do this peacefully," as he was
Trump
saying
was still
in his
speaking
speech.
when they were breaching the Capitol grounds.
Oh, okay,
Right.
But either way, if he had gotten there, he could, he could have ended it. So it's weird that Secret Service would say, "No, we're not letting you go," and it's weird that Trump couldn't override that with just a direct order. Also, so
Yep, I got.
Who hides evidence? Criminals hide evidence, not honest people. So, over the next 10 days, we get to see the machines that are crooked, the ballots that are fraudulent, and if we're wrong, we will be made fools of. But if we're right, a lot of them will go to jail. So, let's have trial by combat. All of us here today.
This was moments before it happened. Moments. Yeah.
They do not want to see our election victory stolen by emboldened radical left Democrats, which is what they're doing, and stolen by the fake news media. That's what they've done and what they're doing. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved. Our country has had enough. We will not take it anymore, and that's what this is all about. And to use a favorite term that all of you people really came up with, we will stop the steal. We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. Lawfully slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Today, we will see whether Republicans stand strong for integrity of our elections, but whether or not they stand strong for our country.
Well, so we've got Rudy Giuliani right before the president giving a speech where let's have trial by combat. I don't know how many different ways you can read that. I know now it's like, well, that was a metaphor. I meant a metaphorical trial by combat, by blood sports and bloodletting. I mean, basically, in terms of like, peaceful protesting, that kind of stuff. And then you've got the president of the United States, who again is spreading a lie that the election was not only stolen. That means that there is about to be a legislative coup. There's going to be a new administration of the United States that has falsely come to power. It is not democratically elected. That this is in fact a takeover, and they can even frame it as like, they can call it, no, this is a fascist takeover, a dictatorship, if you will, a dictatorship over the democracy of the American people. filling their brains with that right before going there, and then being like, and I want you patriotically to make your voices heard as patriotically as possible.
Our country has been under siege for a long time.
We are gathered at a time when democracy is in crisis. Recent polling shows that 39% of Americans believe the election that just occurred, quote, was rigged. You may not agree with that assessment.
What a coward.
But it is nonetheless a reality for nearly half the country.
Madam Speaker, I have constituents outside this.
What a fucking coward. Just enough to be able to like pedal back. Now, I'm not saying, of course, that the election was stolen. I am saying, though, that this is very important, that 43% of Americans believe it was stolen. What are we going to do about that?
This building right now, I promised my voters to be their voice. In this branch of government, which I now serve, it is my separate but equal obligation to weigh in on this election and object. Are we not a government of, by, and for the people?
So excited.
They know that this election is not right, and as their representative, I am sent here to represent them. I will not allow the people to be ignored. Madam Speaker, it is my duty under the U.S. Constitution to object to the counting of the electoral votes of the state of Arizona. The members who stand here today and accept the results of this concentrated, coordinated, partisan effort by Democrats, where every fraudulent vote cancels out the vote of an honest America, has sided with the extremist left. The United States Congress needs to make an informed decision, and that starts with this objection.
Like, yeah, it's pretty clear what was being put into their minds right before this happened. And now, so they went through a lot of phases, right? They went through that first one where it's like, oh, this was actually Antifa. This was a whole bunch of Antifa plants. That's why there are so many people who look to be wearing like face coverings and only Antifa does that. So probably Antifa, right? And it's like, no, these are overwhelmingly identified as Trump supporters, just like across the board here. A lot of different organizations have been identified as being, right-wing militias as well. They seem to have a very prominent presence there. And some of those right-wing militia members of the Proud Boys, have become informants. That's kind of something you should be looking towards your own house in terms of it not being too clean there. But just because someone like Enrique Tarrio, for example, became an FBI informant for them, doesn't mean that this was an FBI attack or this was a coordinated, like, Tucker Carlson has tried his best to try and propagate this conspiracy theory as well, being like, well, yeah, it's kind of unusual just the way it all played out. Yes, it is. But you know what's unusual about it is you can see the difference when there is domestic terrorists and they're white, and there's domestic terrorists and they're non-white, and how they are treated. Yes, there seems to be this odd confusion as both sides are like, oh, we're on the same team. Come on, officers, don't go after me. I back the blue. You know, I'm actually wearing like the thin blue line right now. Why are you getting mad? It doesn't mean that the entire thing in any way, shape, or form was an FBI instigated attack. And to give Joe Rogan any credence for that is absolutely absurd at this point. Like, again, Spotify, you're the one broadcasting this to 11 million fucking people. You know, you're a corporation just like any other broadcasting house. You are a media publishing house. You know, people want to get their podcasts as a modern form of, news, radio, whatever you want to call it. Well, you've got someone on there who's consistently either propagating or trying to sell falsehoods, half-truths, all that kind of stuff.
Personal criticisms. I mean, I wasn't the president. President had a hell of a job during COVID, man. But the way he didn't send in federal troops during the riots of 2020.
President did a hell of a job during COVID.
Well,
uh-oh. Moonlord, what are you saying? Don't you know? Don't you know the script? You can't do that.
No.
You think Operation Warp Speed was good?
No, I don't think he did a good job. I mean, the president
Ooh, good correction. Yep. All right. Back. Yeah. Whew, good. Yeah. No one can think otherwise, right? Yeah. Because he's the one who actually did that Operation Warp Speed and brought that terrible vaccine that's destroyed all of our bodies to us.
Has a hell of a job during something like that is what I mean. And so I can't talk too much shit about it.
Oh, right. Sorry. So it was a shit job, but given the circumstances, it was adequate.
And like be like, well, if I was there, I would have this and that, because like backseat driving, hindsight's.
No, this is new. This is the first time I've seen him, and it's weird that it's like in the same kind of like font and color as the Rational National. I'm sure it's just 100% coincidence. I'm not like saying that there's more than meets the eye.
2020, but he didn't send in the troops day one of the 2020 insurrections, whatever the hell these street riots that broke out after the George Floyd death. I would told Tim the next day, like, where are the fucking National Guard? What are we waiting for? This is going to spread out of control. This is like a fire burning right now. And it did. 3 days later.
Yeah, because of the media and the way you all absorb it. 93% of all the protests during Black Lives Matter were peaceful. 93%. We're talking millions of people in the United States protesting on many, many different occasions in many, many different areas. 93%. The media, though, is of course going to shine a light on the attention-grabbing fires. Because when you see fires, when you see targets on fire, when you see police stations on fire, suddenly it's like, whoa, is this that anarchy I've heard so much about? Is this the jokification of society? Has chaos reigned? Is that what we're seeing?
2 days later, the city's starting to get burned down. And I'm like, where's the president of the United States? The armed chief of our military commander, like,
Whoa, that's weird. Not only did they kind of end it there was no like, well, thanks for watching. If you want more beanies in your life, you just got to go to beanie.com/beanie. But no, they cut them off. Silenced.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
Thank you kindly to our Lord and Saviors Peyton L. Just and Xander Corvus. Without you, we are nothing. And now, a shout out to our Knights of the Square Table. Amazing Flesh, Anna Loves Riley, Adrian McCarthy, DM Rivera, Doug Cady, Everything Important, Hegbard Celine, Izzy Solidarity, La Media Panza, Matthew Scarborough, Multimondi, Nettle, Omni, Peanut Butter Blonde, Political Papi, Quiet 185, Rachel K, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Kubi, Cernicus, Spinach Monster, Stellar Vision, Sebastian Demmel, Thomas, Trevbot EXE, Lucidry, Words Greenwood, Cheryl Alvarez, Tony Perkins, Thomas, O'Pecker, Travis McClinton, and Victoria Bell. Thank you so much. And a huge shout out to all the other people who make this entire show possible. Without you, it would not exist. If you can support us, please go to patreon.com/theserfs, and even $1 can help unlock all of the little goodies and help make this show entirely possible.